Imagine a small alpine town hidden among the snow-covered mountains of eastern Switzerland, a place that barely appears on most world maps, yet quietly influences the destiny of billions. This town is called Davos. Once known mainly as a health resort and a winter sports destination, it has, over the past half-century, transformed into one of the most powerful meeting points on Earth. Every January, presidents, prime ministers, central bankers, corporate CEOs, military strategists, media moguls, and technology pioneers gather behind closed doors, far from public scrutiny, to discuss the future of humanity, markets, and power. The story of Davos began in 1971, when a little-known German economist named Klaus Schwab organized a small meeting of European business leaders under the name European Management Forum. His official aim was simple: to improve management practices in post-war Europe and help companies compete with American corporations. But beneath this technical objective lay a more ambitious vision: to create a neutral space where political authority, financial power, and corporate influence could merge into a single global conversation. By the 1980s, the forum had expanded beyond Europe and was renamed the World Economic Forum, reflecting its growing international reach. As globalization accelerated in the late 20th century, Davos evolved into a symbolic capital of elite cooperation. Leaders such as Margaret Thatcher, Bill Clinton, Deng Xiaoping's successors, and later Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping used the forum as a platform to signal economic openness, political alignment, or strategic intentions. Agreements were not signed on official paper, and treaties were not publicly announced, yet countless deals were initiated in hotel corridors, private lounges, and exclusive dinners overlooking frozen lakes. Investment flows, privatization programs, and trade policies were often shaped not in parliament, but in informal conversations between ministers and executives. During the 1990s and early 2000s, as neoliberal policies spread across the globe, Davos became the intellectual headquarters of free market capitalism. International Monetary Fund officials, World Bank presidents, and CEOs of companies like General Electric, Microsoft, and ExxonMobil promoted deregulation, privatization, and open capital markets as universal solutions. Developing countries in Africa, Latin America, and Eastern Europe were encouraged to adopt these models, often in exchange for loans and aid. While some economies grew, many societies experienced rising inequality, weakened public services, and dependence on foreign capital. After the terrorist attacks of September 11, 2001, security and geopolitics entered the Davos agenda. Discussions shifted toward terrorism, surveillance, and military cooperation. Defense contractors, intelligence officials, and cybersecurity firms became regular participants. The forum increasingly reflected a world where economic power and security power were intertwined. Technology companies such as Google, Facebook, and later Amazon and Meta gained prominence, positioning themselves as indispensable infrastructure for communication, commerce, and information. The global financial crisis of 2008 marked a turning point. Bankers, regulators, and politicians who had failed to prevent the collapse now met in Davos to discuss reform and responsibility. While speeches emphasized ethics and transparency, many of the same institutions were soon restored to dominance through bailouts and monetary stimulus. Public trust in elites declined, yet Davos continued to operate largely unchanged, reinforcing the perception that it represented a closed circle protecting its own interests. In the 2010s, climate change, artificial intelligence, and social inequality became central themes. Panels were filled with words such as sustainability, inclusive growth, and stakeholder capitalism. CEOs pledged carbon neutrality, governments promised green transitions, and investors announced ethical funds. However, critics argued that these commitments often remained symbolic, while fossil fuel companies, arms manufacturers, and data monopolies retained enormous influence within the forum. The rise of China added another layer of complexity. Chinese officials and business leaders used Davos to present Beijing as a responsible global partner, promoting initiatives like the Belt and Road. At the same time, tensions between the United States and China, sanctions on Russia, and conflicts in the Middle East turned the forum into a diplomatic battlefield disguised as an economic conference. Statements made in Davos could affect currency markets, commodity prices, and investor sentiment within hours. Today, Davos represents a new form of global governance without formal authority. It does not pass laws, command armies, or collect taxes. Yet, through its networks, reports, rankings, and meetings, it shapes narratives about what is inevitable, realistic, and acceptable in global policy. When Davos speaks of automation, governments prepare for job displacement. When it promotes digital currencies, central banks accelerate experiments. When it warns of recession, markets react instantly. For ordinary citizens in Lagos, Jakarta, Buenos Aires, or Casablanca, Davos remains distant and invisible. They do not vote for its participants, nor can they attend its sessions. Yet, its discussions influence interest rates, food prices, employment opportunities, and technological access. While executives arrive by private jets and stay in luxury hotels, millions struggle with inflation, housing shortages, and unstable incomes, deepening the gap between decision-makers and those affected by their decisions. Supporters argue that Davos provides a rare space for dialogue in a fragmented world, where rivals can meet peacefully and coordinate responses to global crises. Critics counter that it institutionalizes inequality by giving disproportionate voice to wealth and status. It promotes the illusion of cooperation while preserving existing power structures. In the end, Davos is not a hidden conspiracy, nor is it a benevolent council of wise leaders. It is a mirror of the contemporary global system, interconnected, unequal, technologically advanced, and morally uncertain. It reflects a world where decisions are increasingly made through networks rather than nations, through influence rather than elections. And so, the question remains open. Will forums like Davos evolve into platforms for genuine global justice and shared responsibility, or will they remain exclusive gatherings where the future is designed by a few and imposed on the many?